breath is from.
I love that opening.
Thank you.
I love
Thank
it. Really
you.
cool.
Thank you. Welcome back to the Terps of the Beast Coast. Today we're hanging out with Bishop right now. If you don't know who Bishop is and you don't know who Sili Gloves is, we're going to get into it. But before we get into it, I just want to let you know, please like, share, comment, subscribe if you get anything that you think was either funny or if you think that was something informational, if you learned something new. Just subscribe because we're going to have more and more guests as we move into the year. But right now, we're going to be hanging out with Bishop from Sili Gloves. How are you today, man?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I can't complain, man. And, first of all, we want to say thank you for being a sponsor for our Michigan Resin Cup. We appreciate that so much. And if you don't mind, let's just jump right into it and give us a little background about yourself and where you're from and, what's going on with Sili Gloves.
Okay. Let's see. I'm originally from New Jersey, born and raised in New Jersey, right?
Nice.
And pretty much, I moved around a lot. I lived in Arizona, I lived in California, I lived in Colorado. And recently I just moved back to Massachusetts because my family moved up here a couple of years ago. But pretty much, I've been within this industry for, God, it's got to be almost 20 years now.
Nice.
Going back and forth to California, helping everybody out. I was one of the first people of my area in Sebastopol, California, that actually knew how to make hash oil. Yeah, so I used to go out there, and that was back when you could get trash bags full of trim for like $50.
Or they just give it away for free because they're like, I don't want this shit. This is like extra. I don't need it. Get it off.
Well, the first bag I got for free, and then they saw what I was doing with it. They started charging me.
See, you never let them know what you're doing, man. That way,
right?
But yeah. So as far as that goes, man, Sili Gloves. When did you start this organization or this business? Actually, like, what was your inspiration to say, "Hey, I want to create this product"?
Well, the inspiration is actually really funny. So the inspiration for this started in, I want to say it was probably about 2011, I think.
Okay.
I used to own a vending booth, and I would do music festivals like Grateful Dead, jam band kind of music.
Nice.
So I owned a vending booth that was called Silver Bishop, and I had all the stuff that we did in the front. I sold T-shirts, musical stuff, but then I always had back of house, and in the back of house I always sold hash oil. So one day I was at a festival, I can't remember where, but I was at a festival and I was sitting in my tent and I was trying to break out grams of hash oil. And you know how tents get, it starts getting hotter and hotter in there.
Yep.
Within like 10 minutes, I look down at my hand and I have like 3 grams of hash oil on my hand. I barely made out any gram and I don't know what the fuck I'm supposed to do. So I look at my hand, I look up in the sky and I go, somebody needs to make some fucking silicone gloves. And that's actually how it started.
Nice. There we go. So you inspired your own self to create it. That's beautiful, man.
Yeah, the Terps did it for me.
So pretty much on that, you already gave us a breakdown in regards to the product and the service that makes it so unique. But how's it been going so far with the Sili Gloves? Is it something that people are really into? Because when I look at it, I'm like, how is the flexibility on your hands?
I will actually show you in a second once we get into that part. But so in the beginning, actually the very first pair that I ever made, I made in my kitchen as like a demonstration pair.
Okay.
And then in what was it? It's about 3 years ago now is when I actually started the business and found a manufacturer and started getting everything taken care of.
Nice.
Yeah. So pretty much the way when I first started, we had one initial type. Now we have 2 types. The one is called the Garden Edition, which is meant for working in the garden, bucking plants, doing all of like the heavy lifting work that you would do at a facility. And then after working with these for a little while and talking with the manufacturer, we figured out that there was a way to make another type of glove that it's not as durable, but it's much more flexible. and those are called Sili Gloves trim, and those are meant for trimming, packaging, playing with pretty much anything having to do with oil, and it's like a platinum cured silicone, so it's non-stick, kind of like a silicone puck, but for your hands.
Nice, nice,
Yeah,
definitely. That's dope, man. I've seen it on the net. I think I bumped into you either last year or the year before, and I was like, that's interesting. And then I saw it again, and I was like, huh. I was like, that's something that because right now, like especially when I'm making hash rosin, right? And you have to do the transfer from the parchment and then you're trying to put it into the jar. I don't do the big squishes. I like to do small batches as I think when you do small batches, it's more refined versus when you just try to
definitely. It's
press
like
out.
microbrew.
Yeah, and props to the guys who press out like ounces and whatnot. It's cool, but it looks cool. But at the end of the day, I think when you micro process it, it's you get a better collection. Just my own personal opinion. Everybody has,
Definitely.
especially if you're upscaling and you're doing like a large, you can't do what I'm doing. You know what I mean? You gotta fucking do a whole bunch because there's a bigger crowd that they're feeding. So I
Sure.
understand, why they have to go through that. But let's dive into a little bit of your journey through life. What is the most important thing that you've learned in your life so far?
Most important thing that I've learned: take care of yourself because you're the only one who can do it at the end of the day, and you're the one person that you have to spend 365 days, 24 hours, no matter what.
Right. Nice, nice. And
Yeah.
then, what was your life before learning that?
It was probably a lot more difficult.
Mm,
I found myself in positions where I spend so much time trying to help and take care of other people that I
right.
completely neglect myself and the things that I need.
Yep.
So I would say, I guess you could say slightly more selfish, but I would say really just more concerned about taking care of myself, you know?
Definitely, man. I mean, when you have a good heart, you want to help people. And sometimes, when you're helping somebody else, you kind of, put yourself to the side because you're so concentrated in trying to help that other person out. So
Yep.
definitely, man, I understand that. And so with that said, what are the best resources that have helped you along the way as also like, is there something like a ritual that you do daily, or is it like you take some time off, possibly, once a week, one time out of the week? What are some practices that kind of keep you balanced?
I find I really like meditation yoga. I
Mm,
find that that's an extremely helpful way to keep myself centered. And I have a lot of back problems, so I'm always needing to take care of my back.
nice.
So I found that that's really kind of helpful to put me put me on if I start that in the morning, my day is much better. You know what I mean? If I
Nice.
start my morning off and I don't do like a basic routine, who knows what the hell's going to happen throughout the rest of the day. But I
100%.
find that, and to be honest with you, mushrooms. Like from the time that I was probably 18 to 20, mushrooms have been a savior for me.
For
A
sure,
savior.
man. Yeah, I can attest to that because there are moments when I do run through the microdosing and it's helpful. It really is. I
It is.
mean, as far as, especially if I'm in a funk or just a position where things I feel are just frustrating me, and doing the microdose itself kind of helps alleviate my mood to a more positive, uplifting
Uh
kind
huh.
of mood. And you look back and then you go, fuck was I fucking pissed about that for,
Definitely. Definitely.
So
And then
it
a good larger dose too really helps with self reflection and
mm,
really helps to it's almost like you're having this intense conversation with yourself, but both of you are actually able to talk and let it go through. But
true.
I find that after a good trip, it doesn't even have to be anything hardcore, but after a good trip, I find myself excellent for at least a couple of months, if not years.
Definitely, definitely, for sure. I mean, to each his own. I know some people who do it daily or whatever, or
I
weekly,
can't. Nah,
or
I'm good.
I like I said, once I find the balance, and things are working in a way that I know it's more beneficial for me, then I normally turn it off. But then when I notice that things are getting back off track, I might either enter back into the microdose again, or pretty much do like you said, like something like where it's a little bit more than normal and just like enjoy the ride, man.
Hmm. What Paul Stamets would call a hubris trip.
For sure, for sure.
Yeah.
It's the best, you know. At the end of the day, when you're able to self-reflect and look within yourself and then look at yourself within yourself, it's crazy because you kind
Hmm.
of like you wonder about things and then you kind of like figure out things as you're wondering about things, and it's great.
Absolutely.
So let's jump into the Terp Nation questions with you here real quick.
Okay.
Basically, what is your top three flowers?
Top three flowers.
Yeah,
Let's see.
and
Good.
just to simplify it, it's we don't have to go back. Just currently, what are the top three you're enjoying now? That way, I'll make it easy on you.
Okay. Let's see. I would say my probably my top favorite that's been on the list for years and years. The pre '98 Bubba Kush.
Ooh,
That was
nice,
always like right up there.
nice.
And then there was a strain that I haven't seen in a little while, but I had a buddy that used to grow called the Tuna, which
Oh,
came out of Colorado, and that
okay.
was like it was strawberry cough crossed with a couple others. I can't remember exactly what it was, but this stuff
Tuna.
would just, I mean, it just as soon as you take a hit, it puts you right on your ass.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Tuna. That's
So
a
yeah,
different.
yeah, the tuna. Like I said, I don't even know if you can find it anymore. It was a buddy of mine that I had met on tour who had the tuna. And then really my last favorite would be the one that I've actually grown, and it's called the Smurf.
Wow.
I was given Smurf seeds from Jason King. He's the guy who does all the pictures for the Big Book of Buds.
Wow.
So about 10 years ago, a friend of his I met. His friend was called Galactic Don. He made Galactic Don's Galactic Grilled Cheeses on Dead Tour, and this guy, I talked to this guy, and he ended up giving me a couple of these seeds of the Smurf. And I've actually taken the Smurf and I've crossed it now with a blueberry, and I think I
Mm.
crossed it another time with Super Silver Haze. So
Uh-oh.
that's been one of my favorites. The original Smurf is just amazing.
Nice. Oh man, I appreciate that. You've added some new things for me to go hunt because I'm a genetic junkie is the best way I can say
Awesome.
it.
I'll tell you what. If
Um,
I find any more Smurf seeds, I'll send you one.
oh man, that'll be awesome. Because right now, I'm in my hash phase now for genetics. So
Hmm.
I'm making more hash. So I'm looking for more hashes. So I just got some
Sure.
pancake crossed with wedding cakes.
Okay.
And there's a GMO crossed with the root beer. I'm going to be getting that shortly. So there's a couple things on its way, and a friend of mine just started getting into tissue culture. So
Nice.
I'm
Excellent.
going to be able to preserve some things as things goes on, because that's been my thing, man. I've got a nice little collection that I started again. Unfortunately, I had a collection that was it was taken away from me while I
I'm
was
sorry to
not
hear that.
around. Yeah, no
Of course.
worries,
Yeah.
no worries. But it, I, I was able to. I did find a couple that they weren't able to get, and those are decent. But there's definitely some heat that I lost. Definitely, like
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
friend of mine today, he was talking about the double barrel OG, and I was like, son of a bitch, I had those seeds.
Wow.
Those were gifted to
Yeah.
me, and then I'm just thinking about what else is missing from so it happens. And then it was like the flow. A friend of mine, he had I had seeds for
The
the flow.
flow. Oh my God. I love the
bro
flow.
bro,
Wow.
like, yeah, you don't understand. The collection was it was definitely it was very, very interesting collection that I was acquiring. But like I
I
said,
forgot about the flow.
I
That shit
know
is
people forgot
fire.
about the flow. But guess what? I still got the homie who still has it because he made them. So anytime I'm ready, I could be like, bro, can you bless me again? Because
Excellent.
I know, just like me, he should still have some of it kicking around for sure.
Uh
Because
huh.
what he sent me was just like 30, 40 seeds of everything. I was like, fuck. Didn't even
Yeah.
expect to get that much, but it
Yeah.
was very nice. So, man, thank you for answering the Terp Nation question. Let's jump into the next one, which is when it comes to concentrates, do you prefer solventless or solvent?
Um,
I know.
it's a hard one, right? So I personally, I find that when it comes to solventless, it has to be made correctly because
Mm,
I can always taste, not always, but with solventless that aren't really made well, I can always taste like a burnt popcorn background that for some reason I just can't. I don't know. I don't know if it's even psychosomatic, but all I know is I always end up tasting a little burnt popcorn in the background of the solventless.
mm.
Yeah, yeah. So I would say for me, I mean, if it's a good clean BHL, I would definitely take it as far as the for me the terp flavors over a decent amount of the solventless that I had.
So you're probably running into the guys who are just pushing it and not really letting it flow. And
I
it
would say so.
happens because if they're, again, we're talking about production, right? At the end of the day, because it's such a smaller return, people do a 2 or 3 press, but they don't understand when you do 2 or 3 presses, then you're going to have that residual taste that flows into it. So
Absolutely.
that's why I do smaller batches, one
Hmm.
press, one batch. So I don't have to worry about that taste that most people get turned off when it comes to it being overcooked. So, it to each his own, no worries. And then let's talk about one more Terp Nation question. When it comes to flower cultivation, do you prefer organic or salt?
What was it? Organic or what?
Or salt based? So,
No,
you
I
know,
I try my best to stay with organics if possible.
right on.
I'm the type. My old man always grew when I was a kid.
Nice.
So as an adult, he had this very specific rule where he liked to use the least amount of unnecessary, food as possible. So
Right.
I would like to stick with the organic, and I like to keep it light. Even if I'm getting a smaller yield, I feel better knowing that there's fewer combustibles that are within my flour that's going to come out the other side. Because even I find even with doing a nice flush for a week or two, if you
Mhm.
overuse your nutrients, that stuff just never wants to come out.
No, it's systemic, man. It sticks to the plant because anything where you're force feeding the plant, it's going to become part of the plant.
Hmm.
So essentially, as you said, if you overfeed it, it's gonna transcribe, and I can definitely tell when somebody overfeeds. You can taste it, and then
Hmm.
the resin production also is at a loss, especially when you're trying to over push it. So it all depends. I mean, some people are like, oh man, I kill it. I put microbes. And I'm like, I understand you do, but I think when it comes to growing it organically, the bricks level, the sugar level of the plant is just more sticky, and it's just you get a better return on your oil production if you're pressing flour, and if
Sure.
you're washing it, forget about it. You definitely don't want to have anything that's chelated or pretty much that's part of the feeding that you've been giving the plant. You want that to be more as natural as possible. But
Exactly.
with that said, man, thank you so much for answering the termination question. Let's jump back to you here. So, you said that you were sitting there and you're like, somebody needs to make goddamn silicone gloves, right? If
Yep.
somebody's sitting there going, man, I got this idea, what are 5 tips can you offer somebody if they wanted to get into, making a product themselves?
I think the first really important tip is if you feel in your heart that it's a good idea, don't listen to all the naysayers. Because the
Ah,
fact is, whenever you come up with a good idea, you're always going to have naysayers. And a lot of people like to stop you before you even move to the front door. So, you'll
mm,
get people that are, oh, that's a terrible idea. How are you going to start doing that? So always, poo poo the naysayers. Because if you have confidence about the idea that you have, then you just got to run with it.
right on.
I would say that's definitely number one. Number two is capital is always helpful. The more capital that you can get, the better off you are. Um, Three, use, if you're actually trying to start a business or if you're trying to get a business up and running, use
Mhm.
these social media sites, especially like Instagram and, Twitter, because they are an invaluable source of finding new clients and, getting your product out there without having to spend all kinds of money right out the front door.
For sure, for
So
sure.
I actually never even had a social media account before I started this company, and it's just amazing to me the amount of coverage and support that I've seen since I've been on the Instagram page and on
Beautiful.
Facebook.
Nice. Two
Yeah.
more.
Let's see. Do a lot of research. Research is
Nice.
really important. Make sure that your idea is feasible, that you're not completely out of left field where you have this idea, but in order to make it, you're going to have to do thousands of hours and hundreds of thousands of dollars of research and development to get it to work. I mean, unless you have that money, you're willing to do it. But for most of us, if you're an entrepreneur and you're a smaller business entrepreneur, you're trying to do the best you can with what you have, you know.
Right on.
So I would say that's number four, and number five, probably almost the same as number one. Just really believe in yourself, because
Nice.
I know that when I first started this business, like I said, I had a lot of naysayers. My family thought I was batshit crazy. I mean, they're like, "What are you making this for? You and your five friends that make hash?" But at the time, the market was completely different.
Right,
So
right,
now within just in the 3 years that I started this business, look how many states have become recreational or medicinal.
right.
Um, so like I said, just really, believe in yourself and shoot for the stars. And like I said, research is really important because, you can sit around and you can have ideas all day, but until you actually start doing the research on finding manufacturers, doing research and development, like I did, make your first. I always, the demo product I specifically made because I wanted to make sure when I sent it to a manufacturer, there was
Right,
no dicking around about how I wanted it. This is how I
right.
want it. I made it. Make it just like this.
Beautiful, man. Thank you for those tips. Those are great tips, man. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. Now, in regards to that, man, you already mentioned some things that I was going to ask about where how social media played a role in your business, and you saying that it's been great for you for connecting with other people. So let's talk about your mission in your work. What's the mission in regards to Silly Gloves?
My mission is, we're getting to a point, especially now in the 21st century, that the future of our environment is very
Mm,
important.
mm,
And if you've ever worked or seen people working in a facility, or if you even, like to trim on your own, you know how many
yeah,
pairs of fucking latex gloves you go through just on one
a
sit down,
lot.
you
Yeah,
know?
man.
So, I mean, the idea was to, my main motivation was to make a product that helped people save money, but also was helpful on the environment. So
Nice.
these gloves are not a one-time use; they can be used, an incalculable amount of times, depending on what kind of work you're doing, obviously. Um, but it was like I said, it was mostly about trying to find something that helped people save both time and money. And to be
Mm,
honest, I wasn't even thinking about the dispensaries when I first started making these gloves. This was really more for packagers and for other people. But I've
right.
come to find, especially the pandemic, really made a big difference because in the pandemic, once the pandemic first started, you couldn't find
Mm,
latex gloves to save your life. And then when
true.
you could find them, they were like three times the price of what they originally were.
Yep.
So that was when I really, truly, um, really started putting the product out there with more advertising because it seemed to me like people were starting to understand really how expensive, going through these latex and nitrile gloves is. On top of that, who needs that shit in the landfill? Those
Right.
gloves they're not biodegrading anytime soon. So they're going to be there forever.
Wow. Yeah. Touching on that, are your gloves recyclable?
They're not recyclable. It's silicone.
Hmm.
So silicone is it's an inorganic product.
Mm.
But like I said, they're meant to be used over and over and over again.
What's
And the
the?
idea is what's that?
Oh, go ahead.
And the idea is that if you're working in a warehouse or a laboratory setting, that you work with the product that you're working with, and then when
Hmm.
you're ready to move on to the next one, you take either an alcohol prep pad or a little bit of 70% isopropyl. You clean the gloves off nice, and you can move right on to the next project, and they're sterile.
Nice. So that's what I was going to ask you is like, what's the lifespan on them? Did you ever do any R&D in that to see how long they
So
would?
the lifespan varies greatly depending on what you're doing.
Okay.
If you are, an at home where you're doing it for yourself, I would imagine they'll probably last you at least 5 years.
Wow.
But as
Wow.
far as a dispensary setting, I know that the one dispensary that I've been having them use, they've had them for almost a year, and
Okay.
I haven't heard any complaints about them. So,
Wow.
and like I said, we have two different kinds. So the one kind, the garden, is those are meant to, like I said, they're meant for doing heavy work. So they're not
Right.
as dexterous, but those things you can beat the shit out of. The other ones that we make, the trim gloves, they're much more dexterous, but they're meant for doing lighter work. So they don't have the same, um, you can't beat them up as much as you can the other ones.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. So let's jump. You know what? In regards to the interview itself, we're just going to put it on pause for a second
Okay.
and let's get into the demonstration so people can get a look at in regards to how the product worked.
Okay. Excellent. All right. So hold on. Let me see if I can turn my light on here. All right. So let's see. We have the two different kinds. This is Sili Gloves. This is the Garden Edition.
Nice.
Now, the Garden Edition, like I said, it's meant for the heavier work. So these guys, let's make sure I got the right hand here. So there we go. This would be the Sili Gloves Garden. Now with the
Okay.
Sili Gloves Garden, you'll notice underneath, this is a cowhide that's actually
Mm,
underneath the silicone on the palm side, and that's meant so you can beat these gloves up. It's meant so that if you're bucking a plant, it's not just gonna rip away, and now you need a new pair of gloves like you would if you were playing with latex gloves.
right. Right.
So so that's the garden edition. Like I said, that's meant for pretty much any job in the garden. And then
Okay.
as soon as you want to move on to the next project, take some isopropyl alcohol. I suggest 70% because 91%, it's
We'll
a
break it.
little more caustic. So you will probably not have as long of a life on the gloves with 91%, but 70% works perfect.
Nice.
And then these are the Sili Gloves trim. Now, the thing about the trim gloves is they're stretchy.
Right.
See that? So
I see.
basically, when you put them on, you can stretch them right over your fingers. You know what I mean? See how close this is to my hand?
Yeah.
You know? And then with these guys, instead of having that cowhide on the back, it's just, hold on, let me see. It's just nylon. So like I said,
Okay.
it gives you the ability to stretch the glove. The only thing you got to be careful with is they do stitching, so you can't stretch them like you would a pair of latex gloves. But
Gotcha.
what I like to do is when I get them on, I'll always, for the trims at least, I'll put them on my hand, and then I just start working the fingers down
Hmm.
so you don't mess with the stitching at all. And then once you get them on, like I said, they're pretty much good to go. And then the back is made out of it's lycra, so it's very breathable. So like with latex gloves, I don't know about you, but I got latex gloves on for 10 minutes, and
Yeah.
literally you can
Feel
slap the
this.
sweat off of your hands.
Right.
These
Right.
guys, I mean, you will get a little bit sweaty, obviously, after a while, but these guys give you so much more breathability.
Nice.
All right, let's see if I can get a little demonstration going here. All right. So I'm just going to put the gloves on the table to make it a little easier. And then this is the oil we're going to be working with. As you can see, very sticky. And then what I'm going to do is, just to show you how well they work, I'm going to melt some on here just to show you, because obviously, you know that the warmer it is, the stickier it's going to be, right?
Right.
So there we go. And like you said, you can see how sticky this is.
There it
But it's
is.
sticking to
Yeah.
my finger. I give this a second just so it'll cool down a little bit. Now, as you can see, there's oil right here.
Yep.
So now normally, you can see my fingers now, right? They're like sticky from actually playing with the oil. So now take a little thing,
Bam.
quick pull up, and that's it, everything. And then if you look on the glove, there's
Nothing.
nothing left. Everything's off. And that's pretty much the way they work the whole time. As your hands get warmer, obviously you'll lose a little bit of that.
Right.
But the way that they are, you can, they're meant to be used all the time. You can use them whenever you want, and it's not like you got to put latex gloves on underneath or over the top. So you have this ability to do all these different projects with one pair of gloves. And the
Nice.
thing is, too, both of these gloves can be used in either setting. But the reason why I sell different pairs is because normally people who are working in a garden are only working in a garden, so
Right.
they really need that extra. And normally people who are packaging are pretty much only packaging. But if you're doing lighter work, you can pretty much use either pair for whatever projects you want to do. You know?
Nice, man. Yeah, man,
Yeah.
that's pretty nice, Bishop. Thank you for the demonstration.
Yeah, no
Looks
problem.
it looks something that I think would definitely benefit someone who is doing, like I said, whenever I'm whenever I'm rubbing or I'm homogenizing the rosin, it always sticks on the latex. Especially
Definitely.
as you said, as it gets warmer and warmer, and then the trick that I have to do sometimes, I have to put it in the fridge, let it get a little cool, then I
Uh
pull it
huh.
back out, and then start tacking it up. But it looks like I
Yeah,
wouldn't have to do that. It looks like
you wouldn't
it
have to.
would just cool on there, and you're able to just pick it right back off of the silly. That's pretty cool. Nice.
Yep. And then if you get to a spot where you get a couple pieces, you just take the oil,
Yep.
go like that, and it picks it all up. But I mean, I could do this for days. I did a trade show a couple years when I first started this called Champs, and we just
Nice.
stood at the booth and we were just grandma oil, grandma oil. See how fast we did that? And we take the whole thing, we pick it up, roll it into our hand. Be like, look, you're all good. And people were amazed. I had people. The guy who was next to us started getting mad because he was trying to get people at his booth, and they would see us doing this, and they would just come on over and be like, "What are you guys doing?"
Making magic, baby, making
Yep.
magic. I love it, man. Yeah, that's definitely interesting, and I think it would be a great benefit. I'm definitely gonna have to jump into that.
Yeah, I'm gonna
So,
send you a pair. So
oh, thanks, man.
yeah,
I appreciate
of
that.
course, brother.
So with that said, let's talk about the challenges when it came across building the business. I understand there were some naysayers, but what other challenges did you have to go through to really say, you know what, I don't care what you're going to say about me. This is what I really want to do with this business.
Well, I have to say right off the bat, I actually, I owned a bagel shop when I was in my early 20s, and then I
Okay,
also owned a vending booth. So thankfully, this isn't my first rodeo as far as putting a business together.
gotcha.
Um, um, but um, I would just say, I mean, the probably one of the biggest challenges I had was finding a manufacturer
Hmm.
who could actually do what I wanted, that I could explain everything to. And like I said, that's why I made the demo version so I could just send it to them. But again, as far as, we're very lucky in the 21st century. We have so many resources that we didn't have even, 15 years ago when I started my first business.
True.
So, looking for like, if you're looking for manufacturers, you have websites like Alibaba that go out of their way to list you with manufacturers. And there's another one I can't remember the name of it, but Alibaba is really good because Alibaba will set you up with a whole group of people. You basically write a little thing telling them what you want, and then you
Hmm.
send it out to everybody who you're interested in, so that they all get a chance. And then they come and they compete for your business. So
Ah,
it's really very cool. It's almost like if you were a city and you were having somebody put bids on a project, because now with Alibaba you have the ability to not just go, okay, I found this guy and this is how much it is. You have the ability to go through and find different people, make deals with somebody. This guy, hey, listen, this guy told me they do it for this. So it gives you way more flexibility to actually find manufacturers and people to help you move forward.
Beautiful. Oh man, that's a great tip. Thank you so much. Yeah, I
Sure.
think that's something that a lot of people might not even think about. But yeah, that's pretty cool, man.
Yeah.
Um, so with that said, before all these states came online and there was more access, or I should say, not as much access to cannabis. Now that there's more recreational states come online, was there any difficulties or any restrictions when it come to banking or marketing when you started?
So yes, I have not been able to open a bank account with this business. Yeah. I try. You know, the fact is I can't help. But if you ask me about this for long enough, I can't help but tell you that it's in the weed business. So
Mm,
I pretty much kind of shot myself in the foot because I didn't really know. Like the first guy, when I went looking for a business account, just basically told me that he thought it would be a good idea that I waited. And then when I went to the second and the third bank, I made the mistake of telling them that it was in the cannabis industry, and
ooh,
specifically because it's within the cannabis industry, they don't want to give me a bank account.
oh man.
So yeah. So I mean, I would say if you're starting off, small, a personal bank account is your best bet.
Hmm.
And really, I use Shopify as my e-commerce website management. And
Nice.
Shopify is actually it's excellent as
Yeah.
far as doing an e-commerce business. It covers all the bases for it. Takes care of the credit card transactions, debit card transactions. You get discounts through UPS and the post office.
Wow.
Um, yeah, so that makes it really helpful. And then they do a great breakdown. So when you have to do your, like I just did my taxes. So Shopify is great because you just sit down, you put in your parameters. It tells you exactly how much you made, how many sales you made, what sales. If you really want to know, it'll tell you which sale to which state. I mean, it does. Their analytics is perfect. It does a great breakdown to help you do whatever you need to do as far as taking care of the financial side of things.
Beautiful. Yeah, another great tip. Thank you so much, Bishop.
You're
That's
welcome. But yeah,
that's
don't
awesome.
tell anybody you got a weed business if you're trying to get a bank account.
I did learn that one. So I was fortunate, in regards to starting. I did not mention it, so I did catch that tip. But again, I'm glad that you brought it back up because even though we're still in this state where, as I said, adults are coming online, adult use is coming online, and more states are getting into it. It's still at the banking level, still a taboo thing. So, I
Exactly.
was.
Well, it boils down to the federal government is the one who backs these banks, and the federal government says it's illegal, so the banks cannot. You know what I mean? The banks just can't. They don't have a choice. Personally, I don't understand why, with this business being as large as it is, I don't understand why some multi-millionaire or multi-billionaire hasn't started their own weed banking where they're the ones who are backing it. You know what I
Right.
mean? Because you know that there's dollars coming in every day, and you know the likelihood of somebody failing miserably on a weed business is pretty unlikely, except if they're paying too much in taxes and everything else that they can't make it.
True. Or if they're producing some booth product.
Yeah, absolutely. You would hope that they're professionals, that they're not, but you would never know.
That's true. That's true. So I just want to bring it back. The pandemic, man. What was the biggest surprise you had during the pandemic?
It well, as far as the business goes, there was a sudden increase in sales.
Mm,
Um, like I said, within about I want to say maybe a month and a half, finding latex or nitrile gloves was a project. Um, and like I said, when they came back, they were so much more expensive. So that was when all of a sudden, I went from, making sales every week to making sales every week because now people are realizing that they don't want to spend, $20 on a box of latex gloves that they're going to go through in 2 days. They'd rather spend
right.
$40 on a pair of gloves that they're going to have for years.
Oh man, that's true. I was gonna
Hmm.
say, man, you said that at the dispensary where they're using it, it's almost a year. So I wonder how much they have saved in regards to not,
I would
using so
love
many
to know.
latex gloves, because that would be that alone in regards to, if we're being earth conscious. how many, how much plastic gloves is not being thrown in, or not, not being thrown away because it was one and done,
Uh huh. So I'll put it to you like this: when I was living in Colorado, I was at a recreational dispensary in Denver, and while I was there, a shipment of an entire pallet of latex gloves came. So when I saw it, my first question was, "How long are those last?" The guy's like, "Pfft, we'll be out of that. We'll be done with those in probably less than 2 weeks." And that was
Wow.
and that's a dispensary. That's not even the grow facility. So the grow facility is probably going to through 2 or 3 times as much as what the dispensary is.
Wow. That's
Yeah,
crazy. That's
it's
crazy.
crazy.
Man. So let me just ask you, man, how are you giving back to your community?
How am I giving back to my community? Um, like as far as the business goes, or just altogether?
Yeah, as the business go. Yeah, if you want to give it
Um,
personal, that's fine too.
as far as the business goes, I feel like, like I said, I'm trying. These are the very first pair of reusable gloves that have ever been made for the cannabis industry, to my
Mm,
knowledge. I look around every couple of weeks just to make sure, and to my knowledge, I haven't seen anybody else who does this. So like I said, my passion for this was all about not looking in landfills and seeing all these gloves all over the place. And on
mm,
top of that, as a rule of thumb, I mean, it's a little different these days, but as a rule of thumb, most of the people who smoke weed or have anything to do with weed consider themselves to be at least slightly environmentally conscious. So
for
for me,
sure.
this was an opportunity to give all these people, because before this, it was like, well, I hate, and you always hear people complain, God, this is so gross. Look at all those latex gloves. But
Right.
you just shrug your shoulders and you go, well, I don't really have a choice. I mean, they have, it's got to stay clean. I can't be doing it barehanded, so I guess we just have to deal with the latex gloves.
Right.
So for me, like I said, it was giving people an option, to help save the environment. And the other thing too is, on top of the environment and the money that's saved, if you've ever seen how much hash is on your latex gloves that you end up having to throw away because that shit's not coming off,
I
nothing sticks
know.
on here. And if any little bit does stick on here, you take your tool, you pop it off, and you do a dab with it. You know what I mean?
Dope, dope. Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah. There's times when I'm just like, there's so much resin on this glove,
Yep.
and you're like, you're just like, there's nothing you can do about it. And you just toss it.
I mean, I've even tried putting them in the freezer. I've tried
Yep.
like a bunch of different methods. So you put it in the freezer and then you take it out and the gloves are brittle. So you try to do something with it and you get, pieces of latex all over your fucking parchment paper. Like, no, that doesn't work.
Yes, I have, and that's why I was like, so I don't do the freezer, I do the fridge, and I leave it for like 48 hours, and then I'll come
Yeah.
back to it and try to finesse it. But even then, when you're trying to flip it back out, you just see resin going.
Yep.
You're like,
Yep.
no.
Just watching
That
dollars fly away.
it happens. It happens. So I know that I asked you a lot of questions, but if you could step into my shoe, what would you have asked yourself that I didn't?
What would I have asked myself that you didn't?
Hmm.
Um, God, uh, I don't even know. I feel like you were pretty thorough actually.
Right
Um,
on.
we did the demonstration, which to me was the one thing that I was assuming, that you might ask about. So we got the demonstration done.
Nice.
I feel like I did a pretty good job showing off the dexterity of the gloves here. So to be
For
honest, I feel like you were really thorough. I don't really think there's a whole lot that I would have not thought of to ask me.
Nice. All right. So, Terp Nation, if you made it this far and you're looking underneath Bishop's name here and you see silligloves.org, which is his web, and then you see Terp Trapper 10, believe it or not, that's a discount for you guys. So, thank you for hanging in this far.
Sure.
Hopefully, you can use this discount and get yourself some silly gloves and start saving the earth because, most of the people that hopefully that's listened to my show are very earth conscious because I am. I'm an organic lover of all, and I think sustainability is in this industry is needed more. There's a lot of non-sustainable acts that we do right now, and
There is.
we can definitely we need to definitely start using more sustainability in this industry, because if we keep going the way we're going, it's just going to cause a havoc. And for the naysayers, they're going to be like, see, I told you this stuff's not good for the environment.
Absolutely.
Well,
Absolutely.
at the end of the day, some of the practices are not. But if we can get into some organic practices and be more reusable, do regenerative farming techniques,
Sure.
I think we can definitely deliver quality products, and we can start, giving back to the earth versus destroying the earth more. Um,
Absolutely.
so, so with that said, man, before we jump out, where can we find you or get involved? You want to plug in your social media channels with us?
Sure. So it's just look up Silly Gloves on Instagram. You can find me. I think it's Silly underscore gloves.
It
You'll
is.
see a picture. You'll see a picture of a woman with a pair of gloves on like this.
Yeah.
Um, I'm pretty sure my Facebook is the same. If anybody wants to reach out to me as far as like for business stuff, my email is Shawn SHAWN at sillygloves.org.
Thank you so much.
So you can
So
always reach out to me. I'm usually available whenever. If I don't hit you back that day, I'll hit you back the next day, definitely.
definitely he will, because he's punctual on that. I can attest to
Oh,
that.
and yes, you can. And we have a chat button on the website too, if you want to do a quick one.
Beautiful, beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, as I mentioned before, and I've mentioned before, I don't have any sponsors yet, but if you can share, like, comment, subscribe, hit the subscription button, hit the notification button, so you can know when the next episode out. We really appreciate you being a sponsor for Resin Cup and coming
Sure.
on to the Terps of the Beast Coast. Before I jump out, is there anything else you want to mention?
So just I wanted to mention that this discount code, just make sure if you type this in, it's all capital letters, and it's a 10% off. Oh, and if you're going to buy a pair of gloves in the next 5 days, we are right now doing a 420 discount, and they're 20% off.
Wow.
Okay, you
Nice,
can't use
nice.
this code with the 20%, but for the next 5 days, you can get it for 20% off, and then after that, you can get it for 10% off with this code.
Beautiful. So you can't stack the codes, guys, but you can
The, you know,
definitely,
I honestly I would let you, but Shopify won't let me.
for
So
sure,
yeah,
got you covered, man. Thank you
yeah,
so much for giving back and giving a discount for people to try out and
sure.
get into the product, because we definitely need more sustainable products just like this. Anything else?
Um, no, just real quick, I was gonna say on the sustainable side, the one thing about this business, the probably the second thing after the latex gloves is all of the packaging, the
Mm,
mounds and mounds and mounds of packaging that they go through. And I just want to say real quick, this was not my idea. It was a friend of mine, Tim Delaney, actually came up with this really great concept of, since we make all these hemp products anyway, why don't they just start taking all the stuff that the hemp pieces that we're not using when we're done chopping down these plants, and if you start taking them and you start collecting them, we can start using that shit for our packaging, so that not only is it more quickly biodegradable, but you're actually using every single piece of that plant, including now the stem.
nice. I believe there is someone who is doing sustainable hemp products. I might be wrong, but I believe there is somebody who was trying to get into that. I think the only drawback to that is that we're not there yet. If we were
Sure.
more in Sweden, where they have been growing hemp forever and they
Uh huh.
have the more manufacturing capability, here we're barely getting there, because we're just starting to use hemp in building boards and building bricks, where in other parts of the world where they have been using hemps, they actually already been building housing and using hemp concrete, hempcrete, hemp board.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
once here, because right now with export and import and shit going on with the world right now, there's not too much import going on. So what we have to do here in America is to start growing our own hemp, where we can actually utilize that for more industrial type products. And I'm
Sure.
all for it, man. Definitely, definitely, it's a great idea.
Sure.
So with that said, thank you again for turning in to the Terps of the Beast Coast. Don't forget,
Sure.
share, like, comment, subscribe. Bishop, it's been a pleasure, man. We definitely are going to probably get you back on again in the future to see how
Yeah,
things are
definitely.
going for you. And
And I just want to give a quick shout out before I leave, before we go. If anybody is in the Oklahoma area, check out the 918 OG Experience Project. The gentleman's name is Jeremy. Him and a couple other guys, but Jeremy's the one that I know. And they have been doing solventless hash classes that you can actually go to in, I think, Tulsa, Oklahoma. So if you get a chance and you're interested in learning from some professionals, I mean, every time I turn around, 918 OG has a new award that they won. So if you guys are looking for, a place where you can find education about it, 918 OG Experience Project.
nice. All right. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
And no, you're welcome. And we thank you for tuning in to the Terps of the Beast Coast. We'll catch you on the next episode.
The trap is sprung.